Thank you, John. The second speaker today is Michael Stone, and Mike is currently the president of the Construction Industry Federation, and he's going to speak to you today more maybe looking at some of the solutions, might take us some of the places that John's just highlighted. So Michael's going to look at the obstacles and opportunities for our industry as we emerge from the economic crisis. So Michael, in his day job, when he's not being CIF president, is Chief Executive Officer of the Designer Group. So Michael founded Designer Group in 1992 after an extensive career with the ESB, and his vision has been instrumental in the development and advancement of Designer Group to its current position, where it's one of Ireland's leading engineering contractors. Group is also a respected name within the engineering sector within the UK. So we'll ask Michael to come forward and present for us now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to talk to you here this morning. The GMIT Department of Building and Civil Engineering Annual Conference has become an established feature in the calendar for those involved in construction. I'd like to thank Martin and his team for running this exceptional event and for their commitment to the industry. Events like these really help us set out a vision for the construction industry and see how we can positively impact on the lives of everyone in Ireland. As President of the Construction Industry Federation, I'm delighted to see so many people here firstly today, but particularly so many young people. We need bright, educated and innovative people working in our industry. You will shape the Ireland that we build in the coming years. And I look forward to hearing your views and opinions throughout the morning. Just in terms of career opportunities, I mean, John has already touched that the industry is on the up, and thankfully after coming through the dreadful recession over the last 7 or 8 years, things are improving. And the construction industry generally lags the general economy, and when the economy improves, the construction improves up behind it. So, you know, we have a situation where we have there's a lot of opportunity in the industry. Most of companies working in the sector are taking on people at the moment. There's a large pipeline of projects around the country, particularly in the Greater Dublin area, but I'll touch on that later on. As a result of the demand, salaries are increasing, and that's very important. It's very important for us to attract good people into the industry, and that, and therefore, one of the ways that is that there are good wages and good facilities in the sector. And the importance of innovation in our industry, I'm going to touch on that later on as well. And I think it's also very important to note that the industry and the CIF needs to attract the best talent in order for us to deliver what needs to be delivered to develop the infrastructure of this country. Just to look at some of the average salaries, and I take these as sort of typical median salaries, taking both right around the country and a cross-section of wages, and you can see they're very respectable across the different professions. I will just look a couple of main points really regarding the importance of construction to the Irish economy. And you know, when we think about construction, unfortunately, the media generally focus on housing, and when we talk about construction, we think that everybody that's working in construction, if you were to read the newspapers, is working in the housing sector, which is totally untrue. If we take things at the moment, for example, less than 10% of construction output is in housing, and that is recognised as being far too low. It probably should be between 20 and 25%. But most of the people working in the industry, or the 130,000 people working in the industry at the moment, are working in areas other than housing. And the industry at the moment is representing roughly 7.6% of GNP, which is way below what's deemed to be a target of 12% across developed economies. Our industry employs the joint highest employer of people per sector in the country, employing over 130,000 at the moment, and that's growing all the time, and will continue to grow this year and into next year. And as John mentioned earlier on, we've got a fairly steep growth in output. Some say somewhere between 15 and 16 billion this year is what's anticipated, depending on the rollout of some of the government projects. Then we asked the question of, where is my recovery? And I think, as John touched on earlier on, the election has been lost on this point, because the government felt that there was the recovery was being seen by all people around the country, but obviously that's not the case. But I do think that, particularly for young people, and my own experience is that, for example, in my own business, we would employ about 120 apprentices, and over 2/3 of those will be country people, and they're all very, very anxious to come to the city to work. I think that's a trend that we're going to see more of, and where it's hugely important that we develop regional development, and I think that's something that we're really focused on in the CIF. I think there is a trend for people, more and more so, and it's around the world, moving to the urban areas and moving to the cities. And that's something that we have to accept. I mean, I drove down this morning to Dublin, and I was here, I left area, I was here in under 2 hours. And I give an example of how people, some think, I'll give you a sporting analogy. I was in Croke Park last June for the first round of the Leinster Football Championship between Longford and Dublin. And there was a big controversy going on at the time, and it's going on this year again, about Dublin playing all their matches in Croke Park, and various county boards looking to say, look, this is an unfair advantage, and probably is an unfair advantage, I'll give it that. But I spoke to this friend of mine who's from Longford, and his brother was playing midfield for Longford that day, and he told me that in January, when the fixtures came about and they knew they were playing Dublin, the team met at a training session when it was being mooted that there was going to be an objection put in by the Longford County Board, and the team met amongst themselves and went to the manager and said, listen lads, if you try and move this match from Croke Park, we're out of here. We want to come to Croke Park, we want to play our game in Croke Park, this is the headquarters, and we want to go to Coppers on Sunday night, and that's what we train for every week. We can play in Longford any day of the week. So I think that it's really important that we develop these the regional development. I think there's far too much development in the Greater Dublin area, but I do think there's a fact out there, and that people are being drawn towards the cities, are being drawn towards the urban areas, and I think that that needs to be taken into the. I think it's more of a problem from, and I'm saying this from my own experience of speaking to people who work in my own business as well as people who work in the industry. I think it's more of a problem for older people talking about their kids going to the urban area rather than from the young people themselves. I look at our industry, and I look at the massive tradition that the west of Ireland has in construction. I look at, I would say, most of the best construction people that I've met in my time both in Ireland and in the UK have come from the west of Ireland. There's a tradition down here of producing people who have a passion for construction, who understand construction. It's in their DNA, and I think that's a fantastic thing, and it's a great selling point. I even see that, and I found that in the UK when I've been working over in London. Again, a huge amount of people from the west of Ireland. They built half of London, built the underground in London in the 60s, and are continuing to play a huge impact in that. So I think that's worth recognising and acknowledging. But as I said, there is a huge lack of infrastructural development, particularly on the western seaboard, and the industry itself are lobbying government on a very, very regular basis to change that. Just touching on the housing crisis, again, we all know what's going on. There is a huge shortage, particularly in the urban areas. think Fergal mentioned earlier on that there's a shortage of 4,500 houses in Galway, big shortages in Dublin. It is a very, very complex problem. I think we're going to need, when the new government is formed, a particular minister with specific powers to look at the industry itself, to have the power to deal with the various different departments, take control of them in order to try and get some movement on this issue, because it's taking far too much time to sort out. Costs are too high, and I think the cost of finance is too high. Young people, it's too much money. This 20% deposit is too high, and they're going to have to do something around to bring some sort of element into bringing rental payments into the equation in terms of how you can come up with your 3.5 times earnings, etc. I think there is going to have to be some movement on that later in the year, and hopefully we'll see that. I do think as well that the industry has a part to play in this. I feel that for too long we've been looking at doing things the way we've always done them. I think there is a place now, and I'm going to touch on it later on, for off-site fabrication. I think you young people here in the audience here will have a huge role in playing that. I think construction is going to change. It's changing around the world, and we're behind the curve here in Ireland as to how we're taking on some of these ideas, and I'm going to touch on that later on. But I think that is possibly a way forward in getting to this solution. In modularisation, in off-site fabrication are all areas that will speed up the development and reduce costs if you get scale involved. I come down here to Galway. The biggest employers in the region down here are FDI companies, and a lot of you people in the audience here hopefully will end up working for them. Fantastic companies that come here. They come here because one of the big reasons, and I was with the IDA back in January talking about how we can work together in a closer basis, the industry, to try and attract more companies coming in. And they said it's a huge selling point for them is the Irish construction industry, the quality of the buildings we build, the lack of industrial disputes. The jobs are built, they're built on programme, and for these companies that is an absolute huge issue and something they don't get in other areas around the world, and we should be very proud of ourselves on that. And you look at those stats there, the top 10 global pharma companies, tech companies, all in here in Ireland with businesses, manufacturing and providing top-class jobs. And as I said, the industry has a huge role in that. And going forward, we need to be at the leading edge of things like BIM, things like lean construction. These are the things that these companies, American companies particularly, want. They want these things. They're using them over in the States, and they want young people who understand these processes, how they work, how they're put in place. And I would really encourage people, to be focusing on that, because that's what these companies want. There's a big project coming up in Athenry with the new data centre for Apple. It's a fantastic project for the region here. And again, it's going to bring a lot of employment here from the Galway, Mayo, Roscommon areas, which is going to be very, very positive. Demand for skills. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I think that demand is changing. I look at, we already, in the 8 years of the recession that we had, there's been a big loss to the industry in terms of skills and technology. I can see the difference. There's a very noticeable difference in people, even at 30 years of age, to people at 20 years of age. People at 20 years of age, a lot of people in the audience here, they embrace technology. It's just part of their DNA again. They're just used to it. They're dealing with it every day of the week. And I think that is so important for us as an industry that we embrace that. I don't think the industry in 20 years' time, we will recognise it from what it is now. If I look at, in 2006, there were 29,000 apprentices running through the system in Ireland, through the education system in Ireland. There's 6,500 now. I believe that apprenticeships and working in the industry is not as attractive as it should be. I think it's an absolute disgrace that there's practically no women working on trades. The reason that is that the facilities aren't there for them to work. The facilities on sites that are provided for employers aren't good enough and need to be improved dramatically. I think it's no longer the case you're going to get people. Ignorance is a terrible thing, and one of the great things that we have is that with the work that's gone into our education system, the amount of people running through third level, young people now aren't going to accept standards, working standards or working conditions that are below the norm. And I think you look at these companies coming in, the Googles, the high-tech companies, the opportunities, the standards, the services they provide their employees are to the highest standard. And our industry needs to step up to the mark in terms of how we deliver our sites, how we deliver our projects. That's going to cost money, but the clients, good clients, are prepared to pay that. And if we get good clients doing good work, we will attract good people, and we need to attract the best people into our industry. I think that, if I was to give an example, my own company was involved in a project for the Olympic Games in London in 2012. We did a media centre, which was housed 30,000 journalists and they controlled all the media leading that for the whole Olympic Games. An 800,000 square foot building, and we looked after the electrical and mechanical installation of the job. We were 16 months preparing that job, designing it and preparing it. We had 20 engineers working on the job, and we built the job off-site. The job was fabricated off-site. Mechanical electrical installation was built off-site and brought to site and built in 26 weeks with 100 people. If we were doing that in a traditional method, we would have had 500 or 600 people working on the job. There would have been a huge amount of risk in terms of health and safety, in terms of the quality of the delivery. And you know, that's an example of what can be done, and that's an example of what engineering can do. And I think the future of our industry lies in our engineers and our technicians. I think you're going to see things done differently in years to come. BIM modelling is going to make that easier. It's going to make it more suitable. People are going to be building off site. It's going to provide opportunities for companies to manufacture. So the construction is going to become more of a manufacturing process than it is at the moment. That's going to take time. It'll start on the bigger jobs. It'll start on as many big jobs around Galway that have opportunities, the high-tech, the biotech industries, all those sort of data centres, huge opportunities. And I would really, really encourage the young people here to embrace those sort of things and think about that. Because I can tell you now, construction will not be the same going forward. Because you won't get the people going into the industries. You won't get the 500 people that go onto the site to do it. Because they won't want to. They want to be in different types of roles, designing the jobs, building the jobs in a manufacturing environment where you can bring more females in, for example, because you've got better working conditions. And I really believe that's the way forward. And as we raise our standards and become a high-tech, high-worth economy, that's a way forward for us. And I would really encourage you to think about those things and look at sort of. And I spoke earlier on to a couple of people here, the head of engineering, Jerry. He was saying that they're looking at new courses here, splitting their time between bringing on tradespeople to the next level, level 7, level 8 courses, bringing them further on, letting them develop their careers. Because I think again there's opportunity there for that, and I think it's something that should be encouraged and needs to be encouraged. So the CIF. They're trying to do things. They're trying to do things differently. For example, for years you hear people saying, how do you get an apprenticeship? You had to know somebody. You had to be, somebody who worked in a building company or electrical contracting company or wherever that was. There was no actual applications where someone who doesn't be involved in the industry can go and apply. So now we've set up a website where all the member companies, and there's 1,500 member companies in the CIF. And they put up, the companies put up on our website if they're taking on apprentices or if they're looking to take on apprentices, and allows people to apply and go through the process and get an opportunity to come into the trade and to enter into the industry. That's a good way of doing it, but we need more of those things where we've got career portals, so a lot of you will know about. We've got videos up on that giving demonstrations on the different trades and what it's like to work on those things. Again, we need more. We're getting there, but I think there's more to be done for the industry in attracting people in. The numbers increasing, yes they are, but they're coming from a very, very low base. There's not enough engineers coming through, there's not enough QSs coming through. Like we could have doubled the numbers and we wouldn't have the jobs for them. So I think that's positive, but it's creating its own problems. I'd like to touch then on the enhancement of the reputation of the industry. And John touched on it earlier on about the Priory Halls. And I've said in my role as the president of the industry that we can have no place for substandard work. We can have no place for people who are working in our industry who think they can get away with building substandard structures or carrying out substandard installations. It's just, and they need to face the rigours of the law if they attempt to do that. It is unacceptable that one or two people or one or two companies can bring down the whole face of the industry and all the work from the dedicated people that are doing around the country in building an industry and working for generations. I see a man here beside me here is a third generation builder Noel. What a great family business he's built up. Paul Carey here, another person who's built up, his parents have built their business. Stewart, I see Sean Stewart there, fourth generation building contractors. They don't do bad work. They're not four generations in the industry working as companies by doing bad work. They do top quality work. That's the only place that there is in our industry is for top quality work. And that's what I would encourage, and we have encouraged, the bringing in of regulation. Because we need regulation. I think this country has shown we need regulation. Self-regulation doesn't work in our industry. So, these new things, the likes of CIRI, the likes of these regulation bodies that are coming in, the likes of BCAR, yes, there is a cost to them. But the overall benefit in the quality of what we're delivering and the quality of the products that we're delivering, it will be to the greater good. We touched on this Minister of Construction, and I think that's so important. We do need one. Too many of the bodies, too many government ministers are interested in holding their budget because they give them more power and more control. The likes of the Department of Education, the Department of Health, very large building budgets, and we need to have that under the control of a person who understands the industry, who understands what's going on, and who understands and has the power to make decisions quickly for the aid and the development of the industry. I think that's really, really important, and there's an opportunity there in doing that to create another 60,000 jobs. We also need to have a longer lookout. A 4-year lookout is no good for construction. You need at least a 10-year lookout. You look at the UK, for example, you look at how they always have large infrastructure projects looking ahead. If you took the Olympic spot was followed on by Crossrail. That's followed on by the nuclear power plants developing now that are coming on stream. And then you have the HS2, the mainline train upgrades from London to Birmingham. Massive billion. You've got the likes of Heathrow, another 10, 12-year project looking out. We need that in Ireland as well, so that we can plan ahead, so that people can say they have a future, not just people coming in, doing a degree course, coming out, and you have this up and down the sine curve that we've had for so long in this country. We need to look ahead. We need to be able to say, look, these jobs are coming down the line. It's a good career to come into, because it is a great career. Engineering and construction industry is a fabulous career. You've got so much opportunity, so much you can do out there, so much of the world you can see. It's exciting, and we need to sell that better. And that's what we need. That's what we need a minister for us. And I think that's so important, and we're going to be lobbying for that. So I look forward to hearing your questions later on, and thank you for your attention.